And we are live. Good afternoon. Happy Friday, everyone. This is a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Chris McElwain, obviously not Paul John Dykes. We should be obvious, but just in case. He's off at the moment conducting some, I'm sure, very important Acsom business. Doesn't tell us. We are mere minions, so we don't get to know the inside. But he is off doing something very, very important, which I'm sure doesn't involve getting a free lunch or a paid lunch anywhere. And he does listen to this, so I'll get that one in the neck. The good thing is, you're not just stuck with me. We've got Paddy Sinnott, and we've got the man whose pen is the only thing quicker than Daizen Maeda and Liam Carrigan, our new full-time Acsom blogger, and what a job you are doing. Gentlemen, how are we? Paddy, we'll start with you. How have you been?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Just enjoying a day off from writing, which is always welcome after a week of mental news regarding Celtic. Bye, all good, mate. All good.
Awesome. And Liam, you've been busy penning away doing you can't really call it penning, right? It's all typing, but you're not half firing up those blogs, and they're certainly getting traction. Some really good feedback.
I've got to thank yourself and Paddy for making it a lot less stressful than it could have been, because some of the technical stuff has been absolutely doing my head in.
Yeah, is there an IT department in Acsom? I'm not sure. We probably need one. Maybe that'll be the future role. Who knows? We'll get the help desk. But no, for those who don't know, Liam has obviously started producing a number of blogs, more than I can reasonably keep track of, which are getting very well received. They're going onto the Acsom website, which is acsom.net. If you haven't been on there already, you can go on. You can subscribe, you can get notifications as to when new content is on there, and it includes everything from Liam's excellent blog, but also news on live events. Any queries you might have, you can contact the team through the website, and also we've got our merchandise on there, and the merchandise is something that hopefully will be evolving this year, so watch this space. Thanks everyone for joining us. We're starting to build up numbers now. A couple of things we want to talk about today, gents. But as per the tagline, I do want to kick off with our own Casper Schmeichel. Now he recently appeared on the Overlap, which is the show run by Gary Neville. Usually features Roy Keane and Jill Scott, etc. It's a pretty good show if you haven't seen it. Not quite as good as Acsom, I should point out. But Casper did appear on there, following in the footsteps of his old man. And I just want to read a little quote from him and then get your thoughts, because for me this exemplifies the type of mentality that a player like Casper Schmeichel brings to the job. And he was questioned on the longevity of his career and his plans, and his exact quote was, says, "Do you know, I'm not going to do his accent, by the way, do you know, I've never thought in limitations. If I was thinking in limitations, I'd live into the whole living in the shadow of someone and not achieving the things I've wanted to. So I've always lived in the thought that anything is possible. But I've also been lucky in the sense that I've had a dad that's gone through this. I don't know how you guys feel. You're all obviously retired." I was talking about the other members of the Overlap. Is there a better job out there than being a footballer? While I'm physically able, I know there's not something better waiting for me right now, and I like that point. But what I do now is I appreciate it more than ever. And then he talks about losing the goal against Aberdeen. He said, "I was annoyed, and also because I didn't actually know this at the time, but I was told afterwards that had been the first time in Celtic's history that a team had kept 10 clean sheets in a row. We've only conceded 2 at home all season, and that was back against Aberdeen in October. So this was the first time we conceded since October." Now, Paddy, when you hear him talking like that, there's a couple of things that stand out for me. I mean, one, he talks about appreciating what he's getting at this point in his career. He's 38 years old. He's had prior to coming to Celtic, he's had a fantastic career. But now, at that age, he's playing at Celtic Park in front of, the best fan base in the world as far as I'm concerned. And, I don't think I'll get too many challenges on that front. And he's playing in the Champions League. And he's going to win trophies, but potentially a treble, writing himself into history. And hopefully he's going to do it again next year. I mean, when you think back to how he was received in some quarters when he was signed, he's been an absolute revelation.
He has been, and there was always a fear at the end of last season about who was going to take over for Joe Hart. And when you look at who Joe Hart took over, Vasilis Barkas, there was always a kind of trepidation of who could we get that's going to be that stalwart at the back in the defence, and Joe Hart was that man. Casper also said that in that same interview or that same podcast that Celtic's obviously it gave him something he's never experienced before in his career, which is joining a team that's expected to win. And he said it's made him a better player as well. And you can see that. Do you know what I mean? And we're talking about a guy here who, although he's only made one appearance for Man City, but he's also won the Premier League, the FA Cup, the Community Shield with Leicester. So he's been involved in a lot of high-pressure situations. But the massive difference was nobody expected Leicester to achieve any of that at all, whereas at Celtic, it's expected every single week, not just to win trophies, but to beat all domestic competition, even to beat the likes of Bayern Munich, the likes of RB Leipzig. So, and that's a clear first for him. And you can see that his performances, he's been brilliant this season. It was a difference between us probably getting that drawn by Munich and losing that game. Somebody said he pulled off his performance against Atalanta. Even and for all he conceded 7 goals against Dortmund, he made that scoreline. It could have been a lot worse, put it that way, if it was for somebody says he pulled off. So I think he's thriving. And it's mad to say that at 39 years old, when I think he's over 20 years experience in the game, that he's actually thriving now. But I think, like what you said at the start, he's never really appreciated, maybe never really appreciated is not the right expression, but he's now really appreciating what playing for a big club is actually all about. So no, I think for him, it's been an eye-opener, and he's only been here for 8 months now, 9 months. And the fact that he's on the verge of a treble, he's also helped take Celtic forward in the Champions League. It's just been tremendous. He's been an excellent. I would argue he's probably been the best signing under Brendan Rodgers.
I don't think many people would argue with that. And I think the thing for me, Liam, is that he feels established, even though it's only been 8 months. He feels like this is our established number one. You know, it doesn't feel like a stopgap, doesn't feel like a short-term fix, which he was maybe perceived to be. But he feels like now an established core part of the team, and certainly the team that's getting so much success so far this season, and hopefully we'll carry that through to the end. But I mean, what have you made of the 8 months that he's been here? And would you like to see him continue on for maybe a year or two yet?
Yeah, I definitely think he's got a year or two at least left in him. You know, it's one of those things that when he came in in the close season, I was like, okay, this is a good replacement for Joe Hart, because he's got the character, he's got the confidence. You know, he's a big enough name in his own right. But now I think we're all pretty much unanimous that he's an upgrade on Joe Hart in terms of goalkeeping ability. And that's not a slight on Joe Hart. I love the big guy. He was a superb servant for Celtic. But Casper's a better keeper. I don't think there's much debate about that. And also, you know, to compare it to having somebody with a character of Joe Hart retiring like that and having to come in and replace that, you need as big or bigger a character to do it. I mean, if you look at the case of Man United when Casper's dad retired there, right? They messed around with about 4 or 5 different keepers for about 18 months before they finally signed Fabian Barthez. And he was a World Cup winner, so he was a big enough character to handle it. But, you know, you had guys like Mark Bosnich, Massimo Taibe, who went there as good keepers and just couldn't handle it.
Yeah,
and
Massimo Taibe, famous for the ball going through the legs, right? That was.
Oh, did he not do it like 3 times in like
I think so,
a month or something? It was mental. He's dropped more crosses than I have, for God's sake. But it was it was one of those things that I was worried about, that sort of the Peter Schmeichel syndrome, if you like, replacing Joe Hart. So it's kind of ironic that Casper comes in and he is that big character that we need, and he's just filled that gap and he's excelled, particularly in Europe. We have got results that I don't think we would have had last season. The whole team's improved, but having that experience in the goal really, really pushed us on, I think.
Yep, absolutely. And I think it's going back to that, you know, you have this core spine of a team, and I think we've got quality in each of the areas. And what Brendan seems to be doing, Paddy, is he's trying, I think, to build quality on top of quality. Whereas in the past, we've been frustrated. It seems like in terms of squad, we've been bringing in numbers rather than quality. When you look at Casper Schmeichel, you look at Carter Vickers, you look at Callum McGregor, now Arne Engels in that midfield. Obviously, we've had Kyogo in there, big outlay in Ida. I know some question marks over him up front, but you know, we've now got Daizen Maeda who can play up there. You know, you've got quality in each of the areas, but what you get the impression Brendan's trying to do now, and you're looking at players like Kieran Tierney, you know, proven quality, proven experience coming in the summer. Jeff Schlupp has come in, and okay, again, some scrutiny over the signing. Was he the number one choice? But I think, irrespective of that, what we've got is we've got quality on top of quality. Without denigrating, Greg Taylor, Schlupp has come in and looks a natural fit for the way we play, for the team, for the style. Surely we've got to give the manager a bit of credit for the players he's able to identify, even if it's not necessarily from the outset of the plan.
I mean, even you're talking about Jeff Schlupp. I mean, I like Greg Taylor. I think he's a good player. He's been a fine servant to Celtic, but you can just see Jeff Schlupp's a better defender. He's a lot stronger, a lot more powerful, and it does like a run up that wing as well, doesn't he? I mean, and at times we've seen him up in the opponent's final third this season. Well, in the 6 appearances he's made so far, has been excellent. But I think Rodgers was obviously very keen on reducing the numbers and looking for quality over quantity. And he said that for the very outset when he returned back 2 summers ago. Yep. And he's been proven true to his word. I mean, if you look at the January transfer window, we only signed Schlupp, and then obviously we got Jota back. We were looking for at least 4 signings and our maybe midfielder, definitely our striker, a winger. But he brought in 2. I mean, there's no doubt. I don't doubt for a second that he could have probably brought in more players. But what's that going to achieve other than bloat the squad? And when you look at the amount of players that have left the club since Rodgers has come in, that we felt had bloated the squad, he's certainly done a great job in getting rid of players who just weren't quite cutting it, that have been around the club for too long. I think for recruitment, I know on this podcast it's been a subject to a lot of talk. It's been criticised a lot over the last couple of seasons. But I think so far this season, Rodgers has done a great job in identifying weaknesses in the team. And it's just about taking us forward for next season now, into the summer. We've got Champions League qualifiers to come up, although we have the third round qualifying round, which I think is beginning of August, maybe towards the end of July. So there's a bit of time to get the bodies in that we need. But I think Rodgers has proven that when you look at the players he's signed so far, they can be trusted to spend money and spend it wisely. Yeah,
I mean, obviously we've got what we think is a qualifier coming up. To get back into the Champions League, which is where we obviously want to operate. There was a wee result last night, good for the coefficient. That's the only thing I'm going to say about it. Nothing else. But there's some concern. There's a comment here comes in from Kaiser, which I'm going to bring up because I think it's quite a good point. So Kaiser comes in, welcome to the show, mate, as always, long time commenter. Can I ask you, lads, if we sell, like I think we will, Hatate for 23 million, Kuhn for 36 million, Maeda 56 million, what price range of replacements would you expect? 11 million squad of Engels? I mean, I really hope those aren't actual figures because Dermot Desmond's watching this, then it'll be off for 56 million. But I mean, Liam, I'll come to you with that one. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? You want all your top players to play well, right? And you want them to play well in the top stage, which is the Champions League. The downside to that is that they start to get noticed by potential suitors, by other teams, and when you look at the way, for example, Daizen Maeda is playing at the moment, you look at the way that Kuhn's played this season, some of the big moments. Jota coming back, very likely that his stock will continue to rise despite the circumstances of coming back to the club. Carter Vickers, all these guys, top performers. Other teams are going to look at them and think, well, we've got the financial clout to go and make an offer not only to the club but to the player. But as we've seen with the Matt O'Reillys, with the Kyogos, doesn't it necessarily always work out? Sometimes it's not necessarily about where you're going; it's about where you're leaving, what you're leaving behind.
See, I've actually been contemplating for the last few days writing an article about this because it's something that's been burning away in the back of my head. Is the idea that why do these players like Matt O'Reilly, like Kyogo, who we know are fantastic footballers, leave Celtic and then it doesn't work out for them? And I don't think it's a fault in the players' part. I think it's the fact that Celtic, we take players who maybe are up and coming or maybe who are down on the luck, having had problems elsewhere, and we make them feel loved. We make them feel part of the family. And they thrive. I mean, Joe Hart's a classic example, right? what was he, 5th choice keeper at Spurs or something, comes to us and within 10 minutes he's a hero. Because we loved him and in turn he loved us. You know, he totally bought into what we were all about. And I think other players have too. But then some of them, whether it's to advance their career or whether it's for money, whatever, well, everybody does what they do. It's not my business to tell somebody what job they should do and what they shouldn't do and where they should work or not. But a lot of players move on from Celtic and later realise I'm not getting that same affection from the fans that I was getting at Celtic, and it's got to mess with them mentally, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially if you go to England, where, with the greatest of respect, you've got a lot of very mediocre teams with sky high expectations.
Yeah, absolutely, and do you know it's very evident. Sometimes, you know, and Paul John will give me stick for this, but you know, drop a couple of names that we tend to see at the Acsom live events. You know, the Johan Mjalbys, the John Hartsons, etc. You know, big names, big players who've came in. They've had a great career at Celtic, and yet the affection and the memories and the nostalgia, not just for those of us going and watching these guys, but what they bring back to these events. You know, the way John talks about his time at Celtic and what it meant for him, and the fact he still lives up here, and you know, that kind of thing. Johan talking about you know, being part of that Seville team, you know, and he said something quite interesting backstage, Paddy, which I'm sure he won't mind me sharing. But Johan, like a lot of the players of that time and that squad, you know, they struggle to watch the game in Seville back because obviously they didn't manage to lift the trophy. But when Paul John put it to him that, you know, he was one of only 30 players at the club to play in a European final, he did say that resonated in the sense that, God, that's a hell of a legacy. You know, that even though they didn't win the trophy, that's a hell of a legacy to have. And so the strength of feeling towards the club, towards the fans, towards what they achieved during the runs is still very much there. And I think, you know, we need to find a way to translate that across to new players who are coming in and trying to establish their Celtic career. You know, look at what actually you would have 10, 15, 20 years from now.
There's some players that just get it, but like when they come to Celtic straight away, look at Alistair Johnston. He's a perfect example. He joined us in January 2022, and you could see right away he's the kind of guy that got what the club was about. He built that kind of resonation with the fans. He's a tough tackler. He's passionate. He just loves playing football. He loves playing for Celtic. He's one that gets it, and I think that's where fans respond to that. Mattarelli got it as well. He loved it at Celtic. He had a good relationship with the fans, same as Kyogo. And I think Liam just said it there. I think leaving that relationship with 60,000 fans who adore you to go to say, let's just take Mattarelli for an instance, to go to Brighton, who've got a 10,000 seater capacity stadium, and they don't have that same kind of passion or the same kind of desire for their players. And the Premier League, I think, for all people say it's the best league in the world, it's certainly not the best for passion either. I mean, I watched the Man City Real Madrid game when Erling Haaland put them 2-1 up when he scored that penalty, and he ran to the fans. And I don't know if I spoke about this in the pod before, but I was watching the game with my daughter, and I was like, look at the fans. The fans are standing there with their cameras. They're not even celebrating going ahead against Real Madrid in a knockout game. I couldn't believe it. I remember being at Celtic Park in the 2-2 each game against Atletico Madrid, and when we scored against them twice, my phone was in my pocket the whole game. You just lose that kind of passion and that kind of support for the team. And anyway, that's a bit of a ramble. But I think anyway, the point I'm trying to make is there's players that get it, and the players that get that bond with fans, the players that get what the club's all about. But when they go to a different club with different expectations, a different kind of fan base who aren't as passionate as the Celtic supporters, they struggle. And like Liam said, it would mess with your head because you're going for being the person who's adored by 60,000 plus people, who's getting all the attention, who's getting all the adoration, to go into a club like Brighton or maybe even, I don't know, Rennes as well, where they're probably not as passionate about their players, and you're not maybe the number one player in the eyes of the fans. That would mess with you, and it would hit your confidence, and it would make you think, well, what have I done? What have I left? So it's no surprise that people leave Celtic and struggle. Although that's not to say everybody that's left Celtic has, but when you look at the big many signings that have left, the vast majority, Moussa Dembele went to Lyon. He did all right, but where is he now? Do you know what I mean? So and obviously Jota left. He chased the money. no kid ourselves on. That's what attracted him to the Saudi League. Then he tried France, didn't quite work out. Now he's back at Celtic and he's thriving again. So it just shows you. I definitely think that players who tend to leave Celtic, they regret that move for whatever reason they've left. They do regret it.
Yep, absolutely. And I think Jota's a good example, as you mentioned. Someone who did leave. People have varying opinions about his reasons for leaving. I don't think many people would blame him. For taking the
listen. When I said that, if it
it
was me and I was getting told that I could leave my job to go and get paid 10 times more to write for an our site, of course you're going to go ahead and do it. Do you know what I mean? Of course. But so that wasn't a slight.
Yeah, only if you're not playing for Celtic, though, right?
But that wasn't a slight on Jota. I'm just trying to make the point that that was the reason why I left. If you're ever offered that kind of money, because nobody else came for Jota that summer. It was the first team to come in, and to get offered that kind of money, anybody's going. Do you know what I mean? But let's put it this way: if somebody came in and offered them the same amount of money Celtic were offering them in the English Premier League, and we get the same amount of money, would they go? Probably not.
Yeah, well, I think what I've liked about since Jota's come back is that there was that sort of self-reflection and self-realisation that, look, I did go, knew what I was going for, but again, a little bit similar to what Casper Schmeichel's saying, he just appreciates now he's had a second chance at this club. And, I think not many players at his point of his career get the chance to come back and re-experience that feeling of being a Celtic player, of being adored by the fans, which he rightly is, and get an opportunity to show what you can do on the top stage in Europe. So I think it's fantastic. Now, another player I want to talk about, and Liam, I don't know if Paul John said this to you, but I'm hoping he's given you acknowledgement directly for over 2 years, at least, saying Daizen should be playing up front. Daizen Maeda should be playing up front. Kevin McCluskey is going to give me trouble because I never remember if it's Daizen or Maeda, we should say. So I just flip between. But he's been a revelation, I think, over the past year and a half. But this season, he's just gone to another level. Is it a case of you saying to everybody, "I told you so," or is he exceeding your expectations as well?
I mean, the thing is, I knew he could do that because I've seen him do it. I saw him do it at Matsumoto Yamaga. I saw him do it with Yokohama Marinos. But I have to admit, even though I always advocated for Daizen being a striker, even I am surprised at just how good he's been. He really has. He's gone a level beyond whatever I saw him do over here. It's incredible. He's really. He always struck me, though, as one of those players who I saw incremental improvements because he was very raw when I saw him at Yamaga. I mean, we're going back 5 or 6 years here, right?
Yeah.
So he would have been a young guy. I think Yamaga was his first top flight team that he played for. Then he went to Portugal for 6 months. Then he came back to Japan and went to Marinos. And you saw an incremental leveling up every time he moved to another team. But then when he came to Celtic initially, that was the first time I'd ever seen him play as a left winger. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's a really good left winger. I'd always thought of him as a striker. And I'd actually been saying before we signed him that this is the Japanese player we should be looking at. Because a lot of people, with me being in Japan, people were asking me, like, who's another Japanese we should sign? And Daizen Maeda was the first name that came out. So, it's been more like 4 or 5 years that I've been saying he's the man that Celtic should have. But the thing with him now is he's really, really improved. And I just wonder how much further it can go because he's like a different player from when I first saw him. But that evolution seems to be incremental as he's about 27, 28 now, so he's coming into his peak. So hopefully we give him another contract extension and we can keep him for another. If we get him for another 3 or 4 years, and then, he'll be 32, 33. He goes back to Japan, which is what most of these players do once they hit their 30s. And he'll probably play for another 10 years because he's that fit. If Kazu Miura can still get a game at 56 years old, then I think Daizen at 35 won't have many problems,
Not with his energy level, no. I think probably he'll be collecting his pension before he hangs up his boots. I think at this point,
he's already collected his pension.
I was going to say he's collected it, cashed it in, invested it. Absolutely. I mean, Liam, one of the things I did want to ask you about Daizen, well, two things actually. First one was, I believe there was some kind of under the radar rumor at the time when he came obviously in January. We already brought in Kyogo and Hatate, but there was a rumor that actually Daizen was the number one target. We just couldn't get him until January. So I don't know if there was any truth in that at the time, but that in itself is a testament to how valued the player was. So I'll get your thoughts on that, and then I've got another point on.
Well, what I would say to that is what I have heard, and it's just what I've heard. And Paddy's better connected than me when it comes to writing about Celtic, so he'll probably verify this whether I'm right or wrong. I had heard that Ange actually had an idea that when he leaves a club, he doesn't want to raid them for the best players. So he hung off on signing Daizen for 6 months out of respect for Yokohama. Because by that point, the Japanese season finishes in November. So he had seen out his commitments, if you like, at Yokohama by that point, and then Ange could go in for him. So as far as I understand it, there was a kind of gentleman's agreement there that, okay, go to Celtic, Ange, good luck, next stage of your managerial career, but please just let us keep Daizen until the end of the season. He was like, no bother. No bother, mate.
How does that translate in Japanese? Nice one. Well, the second point is I want to make, and it goes to I think something I remember you saying back, some months ago, was Daizen always looked like quite an understated character. Didn't emote a lot on the pitch when he played. Kind of icy, cool, steely. What we've seen this season, we've seen him on the pitch with his kids. We've seen him getting really, celebrating. He's a player that looks happy. It looks like he's happy. He's settled. I've heard, positive things about, how his family are adapting to life in Scotland. Seem very settled as well. Does that give us hope that actually we can retain a player like Daizen beyond not only this season but for the next few years?
Yes, yeah, it does. Because the thing about Daizen, which you won't. People who haven't followed him from before he was at Celtic may not be aware of this, but family is everything to that guy, right? He went to Maritimo, I believe it was, in Portugal, and did well. I think he got 13 goals in about 23, 25 games, something like that. And they wanted to make the deal permanent. It was a 6-month loan deal, but they wanted to make it permanent. But after that, he was like, no, I'm going back to Japan, because he just had a kid at that point. And they were not ready to make the move to Europe. Because every Japanese player knows that to play at the World Cup, to be a consistent member of the Japan squad, realistically, long term, you've got to be playing in Europe. That's the goal, right? It's much the same way as if you think of like back when the Republic of Ireland had a great team in the 80s and 90s, right? All their best players were playing in England, right? It's kind of that same idea. Like Japanese players know they have to play outside Japan to get the recognition that they deserve. But Daizen was like, no, I'm going to leave it for a year or two because I've just had a kid and we're not ready to make that move as a family yet. And when he finally decided to go to Celtic, you can clearly see the way we've taken him and we've taken to his family as well. He will be very, very happy. It's going to take an absolutely massive offer, first of all, to get Celtic to even listen to anybody in terms of selling Daizen. But it's also going to take a lot to convince the player, because I genuinely don't think money is his primary motivation. He will want to get to the best level he can as a footballer. But if Celtic continue to progress in the Champions League, then that might be where he will reach his peak. I mean, the guy's already scored the knockout stage of the World Cup. How good can you get? And unlike Kyogo, where there was something weird going on there because Japan's manager said Kyogo wouldn't get a game for as long as he was still at Celtic, but Daizen and Hatate get called up no problem. And funnily enough, they both got the same agent, so that's a bit weird. But I'll leave that to others to speculate. I'm not going to say anything, potentially libelous. But there was something weird about the whole Kyogo situation there. But with Daizen, it's not an issue, and he's a very proud Japanese man as well. So the fact that he can still play for his country whilst still playing for Celtic is perfect. To me, it's the perfect situation. He's going to be playing Champions League level most seasons. Worst case scenario, Europa League. So he's always going to have a European showcase as long as he's at Celtic. And that is where he's going to be judged primarily.
Yeah.
So as long as he's doing the business in Europe, he'll still get a game for Japan, and we will, I hope, increase his contract accordingly as we see him getting better as a player. And yeah, I see no reason why we can't keep him for a long time.
Good. Well, that's certainly the hope. Can you bring in some of the comments, and then we do have a game coming up that we want to discuss, quarterfinal, as we keep our run for the treble going. But I'll bring up some of the comments first of all. So, as is traditional, Jungle Lion, it genuinely was on first today. We all know Celtic's best team now. Play your strongest team till the end of the season. Yeah, I think we'll see how Brendan approaches the game shortly. I'll get Paddy's thoughts on that. Brendan McCarthy comes in. Hail, boys. I think we'll beat Hibs 5-0. It'll be like the Aberdeen semi-final. I would certainly take that because we know they've been tough opposition. And then Brendan came back and said maybe Celtic should do less miserable with Kyogo if he's not happy and bring him home. I think he's still got enough credit in the bank where he'd probably be quite well received. As we say, bringing in quality over quality. But I don't know if that door's maybe closed as far as a player's concerned. We'll see. Stranger things have happened. Tony Ratton comes in. Brilliant addition, Casper. Typical Brendan signing. Yep, I'd agree with that. Jungle Line, let's have a happy Friday show. I'm doing my best, mate. I am doing my best. All positivity today. That's what we want. James Downey, welcome to the channel. Hail, boys and girls. Happy Friday to all. Happy Friday to you as well, James. Conley J. Larkin comes in after an all game. Still seems like an age away. Yeah, this no midweek games is killing me now. You know, I keep looking and saying, am I supposed to be on Acsom tonight to cover the match? And there's no match. I don't like it.
I'll tell you what, I don't know about you, but I quite enjoy having one game a week right now because every time there's a game on, I need to write in 6 or 7 years.
Well, of course, yeah.
And it's frantic, so I'm quite enjoying the downtime.
Well, to be fair, yeah, there's always that side of it, Paddy. I mean, looking at the game that's coming up at the weekend, it's Hibs. They've been one of our tougher opponents this season, I think, domestically. Certainly, in the most recent game, gave us a real hard match. Albeit, I don't think we were on our game that day. But it shows you that even at domestic level, and as much as I don't like it when we ride our domestic game. I think, I would always promote the Scottish game. I think people don't realise how tough it is. Players don't realise how tough it is to come up. But we know, there's, in terms of resources, in terms of the gulf and, the capabilities financially between the teams, etc. But what it does show you, and what a recent game against Hibs showed us, is that we can't drop our performance level. Domestically, Europe is one thing, but we want to continue our success domestically. We want to push towards a treble. We need to be on our game.
Definitely be on our game on Sunday when it comes to Hibs, because when you look at their last run, they're unbeaten in 12, I think, in their last, and that takes into account playing Hearts, Aberdeen, us, Dundee United. I mean, their last 4 results have been tremendous. Do you know what I mean? So they're not going to be. It's not going to be an easy match. I mean, the only thing that I'm thankful for is at Celtic Park. I think having a full crowd plus having 7,000 Hibs fans there is going to make it a great occasion. Yeah. I reckon it's going to be a good day. I think for us, I agree. Was it Jungle Line that said we've got to play our strongest squad? Yes. I think I agree with that. I think from now to the end of the season, it's got to be the strongest 11, no matter who we're playing. We are looking at a world record 9th domestic treble this season, and we want it. And I know the league's fairly much done and dusted, but anything can happen in a cup game. Anything can happen in a cup game.
It's the old cliche, isn't it?
Well, exactly. And I know, and I hate being that guy saying that, but like that's all it takes is just that it can take a deflection or just an off game, like we had at Easter Road, and that treble is over. Honestly, I can't see it. I think we'll have learned our lessons for that game, so maybe that'll be a blessing for us losing Easter Road, to come out the traps like we did against Aberdeen at Hampden. Yeah. I'm hoping for a big victory. I'm hoping for maybe a couple of goals, but I think it might be a tight one on Sunday.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think it's, as you say, I know it's a cliche to say it's a typical cup tie, or anything can happen over the course of 90 minutes. I mean, pick your cliche, you could use.
I mean, we've not lost the Hibs in the cup this century at all. So that's probably a good signing.
I'm touching the wooden desk here, Paddy.
I think we've only drawn once or twice from this century. So I think in a cup competition. So I think we should be okay.
Yeah, Dog agrees with you anyway.
I thought that.
If anyone ever wonders what this dog looks
He was
like,
checking my stats there,
we
wasn't
go. These are the conditions that I have to work under. Nobody appreciates it. That's what happens when I'm on Acsom. Liam, Jungle Lions mentioned it. Paddy's elaborated on it. Talking about the strongest team. I think we have to have our strongest team to continue competing. That goes without saying. We need to manage the squad as well, but. There's a few positions there where I think there's still a question mark over who is who are those personnel that make up the strongest team. There's some very obvious ones: Casper, Carter Vickers, Cal Mack is probably in there. But now you've got question marks over Schlupp or Taylor, depending on the opposition. You've got Hatate, Engels. McCowan's starting to play his way into contention with some of his performances. Hatate's hitting form, again largely, and then you've got the Maeda question. Who for you? Who makes up the strongest team at this moment in time for Celtic?
Well, first of all, I would say don't worry too much, Paddy. I mean, they're good, but they're no Queen's Park Hibs,
Queen's Park are still in, by the way. So
that's a good point.
But no, to me, it's Schlupp over Taylor. I think Schlupp is a more complete footballer, and he is potentially playing for the opportunity to be a part of the squad beyond the end of the season. Whereas I think the consensus is that Taylor's away, and he goes. With my full blessing, he's been a fantastic servant since all the time he's been at Celtic, and he owes us nothing. Good luck to him wherever he does go, if he goes. Midfield, I think there's still a bit of flexibility there because Engels has been immense the last few weeks. Hatate is still kind of blowing hot and cold, but he is in our best midfield when he's at his best.
Yeah.
But McCowan has done enough to give you something to think about in that regard. So that's definitely a question that's up for debate, although I personally would still go with Hatate. Up front, it's Kun, Maeda and Jota for me. That's our strongest front three. But I think that Yang has showed, and I've got my career shirt on today, I'm officially in the Yang gang. Wife wasn't too happy about putting a career shirt on, but that's another story. I think he has shown that he can be a great impact player. So having him as an option off the bench now, it's the good thing with Celtic now is like whoever plays, I don't feel like we're massively weakening the team. I wouldn't be absolutely horrified if we started Maeda out left and we put Maeda up front. I wouldn't be upset if it was Hatate or McCowan that came into midfield. If he decides to go with Taylor over Schlupp, I don't think it's that big a deal. I think that there's a real strengthening of the squad now, and that's we've had these arguments before previous seasons. Why is he playing that? He's out of form, whatever. We don't really have that now because whoever comes in, most of the time we're reasonably confident they're going to at least do a job, especially domestically.
Yeah, Liam, did he retired a long time ago, mate? I hate to tell you that. Sorry, I'll get pelters for that one in the comments. Yeah, can you get your thoughts as well, Paddy, on some of the positions? I think Ida's an interesting one to talk about, Ida or Maeda, but I'm kind of very much with Liam. I did see a comment here I thought I'd bring up because I thought this could be quite an interesting one. So Celtic follower, welcome to the channel. Having to rewind to start because I'm late. Hail, everyone. Well, the good thing is by the time you catch up, you'll see your comment appearing on the screen. So there's a wee time travel element there, which I quite like the idea of. Paddy, Liam's spoken about the fact we've got good options. One I was conscious I didn't mention actually was Bernardo, who's still to come back in from injury as well. But we're starting to see decent options throughout the park. But the one I wanted to touch on is the man that Liam mentioned, and he's representing today with shirt as Yang. Now Yang, probably more than most players who are still at the club, been subject to more scrutiny, including from myself and a lot of the other Acsom contributors. What we've seen of him in the last few games is it looks like he's moving in the right direction in terms of his development. Right, he's getting in, he's getting involved in the game, he's impacting games, impacting very well. Most recently with the 2 goals, 2 headers as well, which I don't think many of us would have seen. Does he have a chance between now and the end of the season to show that he's got the capability to step up and become an established member of this squad? Not going first team yet. I think that's a bit of ways yet, but certainly part of that squad when we talk about quality?
He's a good option off the bench. I said that, I think the last time I was on the show was a couple of weeks ago. I said I still think there's a player there, but I thought his time at the club might be up. I'm hoping he's proven me wrong, because what he did against St Mirren was excellent. But I think the problem with Yang is that he's coming on in games where teams are tired, and he's fresh, he's buzzing, ready to go, and he's looking good. I think the big test for Yang will be when he starts, because if you look at his history, when he starts games for Celtic, he typically, for me anyway, in my opinion, he's fairly anonymous, or he has been fairly anonymous. I think when he comes on as an impact player, he's quick, he's tricky, and I think he does well against tiring teams. Do I think he'll be a first-team starter at any point between now and the end of his contract? I don't think so, no. The quality ahead of him was just far too much. I think if he's wanting a Celtic career, he's just going to be one of the players that comes off the bench. He's going to be an impact player. I would love to be proven wrong, because I like him. See, when you look at him, and see when you look at, he's an honest professional. When you looked at his kind of post-match interviews after the St Mirren game, the guy was buzzing. He loves.
Oh, he was delighted, wasn't he? He was absolutely delighted.
And you can see how much he's buzzing and playing for Celtic. But I just don't know if he's got it in his locker to be a regular first-team starter. Not just because of the guys in front of him, but just I just don't know if he's. I just think he's an impact player. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. I just think coming off the bench is a great option to have. That's as far as I would go with it.
He'll never have a better opportunity, right? There is a what if element. You think, well, what if James Forrest had never got injured? Would Yang even still be at the club? But I think he's got that opportunity between now and either the point where James Forrest comes back in, or indeed, as you say, until the end of the season. So it's a decent option to have. I'd probably agree with you. I don't think he's quite at first team level yet, but I do think all you can ask of the player is to come in and make that kind of positive impact.
Is he 22? He's only 22.
I think he's still 22.
When I was 22, I was an idiot. When I was 22, I wasn't playing professional football, so who am I to sit here and judge a professional football player? So maybe he has got that opportunity, and we look at how late Callum Gallagher came on. I know it's a different position, but you can, like you say, you can always say what if. He's still a young boy. And obviously Brendan Rodgers alluded to the fact that he was missing his girlfriend. Maybe that's a reason as well. But I hope he proves me wrong. I genuinely do, because I think he's a lovely guy, but I just can't see it. I can't see it. Yeah,
well, absolutely. I think we all wish him well, and we support any player while he's wearing the hoops, irrespective of where he stands. But yeah, I would agree with that. I want to stick with you for the moment, Pi, just to get your views on Daizen Maeda. So we talk about Yang very much being an impact player coming off the bench. But when you look at Daizen Maeda, it's difficult to put him in the same bucket, because he came in for such a big investment, big outlay, the 8.5, possibly rising to 9 million. Certainly, I think, has gone some ways to paying back some of that in Europe, and, certainly towards, last season, into this season. But would you argue that he's probably still playing second fiddle to Maeda at the moment, or do you see either being able to again establish himself into the first team? Has he shown enough for you so far this season?
Definitely. I like Maeda. He's a good big player. Again, I'll go back to what I said that the last time I was on the show. He's a Rodgers signing. He's a Rodgers striker, big, bulky, skillful, quick player. He just looks bereft of confidence, doesn't he? I think there was I'd written about it in 67 Hail a couple of weeks ago, where, Celtic's unique angle camera, where they kind of catch different angles of goals. Well, there was this angle at full time where you saw Maeda at full time against, it escapes me, it might have been Aberdeen, but he just looked totally dejected in the full time. We'd win the game, but I think even he knows himself that he's low in confidence and he could probably be doing more. But what I did love was how he responded to Yang's double against St Mirren. He gave the guy encouragement as well. So I think for me, he does still get something to show for Celtic. I think he's just gutted that he thought Kyogo was leaving. This was his big chance, and Maeda just pops up at anywhere and turns into a goal machine. You can't legislate for that. So he's probably thinking, what do I need to do here to get to be a first team player? I love Big Maeda. He loves playing for Celtic as well. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's skillful. He's a good striker. I just think he's just low in confidence. He'll come good. Yeah. No doubt about it.
Yeah. I always think strikers thrive on goals, and that's where the confidence comes from when they get a run and they're scoring goals. And I also think it's not a bad trait to look a bit dejected when you don't score, because you want your strikers to be disappointed when you don't score, because that's the bread and butter, right? So I kind of think that's where, what you don't want is a player where his confidence affects his ability to get goals. But I think, being disappointed that you're not scoring is not necessarily a bad thing. So hopefully Brendan will tap into that. And listen, if it's Daizen Maeda that's keeping you out the team at the moment, you can't feel too hard done by.
What can you do? Exactly.
The way he's playing, yeah. You imagine how Big Sutton and Hartson must have felt sometimes playing alongside Henrik.
Exactly. I mean, when you look at the front three in total. You look at Jota. Since he's come back, he's just made an instant impact. You look at Kuhn. He's off the ball slightly now, but you're not going to drop Kuhn because he can just turn it on and he can be a game changer. And then you look at Maeda, so he's fighting three fronts. He's probably hoping that somebody on the wing has a stinker and Maeda gets shifted there and he gets his chance. But it looks like I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Yep. So would you go with Maeda up front for the cup game?
100%. He's got to. I mean, he's brimming with confidence, isn't he? And he's just a pest. He's an absolute pest. And even the Bayern Munich play, when you see them come off, when he changes position the last 10 minutes in his Bayern Munich, he just annoyed the hell out of him for the last 10 minutes until he scored his goal. And he's brilliant. You've got to start him. I'd like somebody to come up with an argument for not starting him, put it that way.
I don't think you're going to get one on the show anyway.
I know exactly.
Yep, absolutely. So just going back to the cup final then, so we reckon we'll go with Maeda up front, Liam. Who would you play midfield? Would you stick with Hatate, as you said, and who would play alongside him?
Hatate, Engels, and Kalmak for me. That's our strongest midfield. But as I said before, if McCowan comes in for one of them, I don't think it's a massive drop off in quality. So I'd be quite happy to have McCowan in there as well, and when he's back fit, Bernardo as well. I really think that we've got I think we've got a solid core there that we can work with. So I'm not bothered who really starts. But as I said, Hatate, Engels, and Kalmak for me.
Gotcha. And there's also another slight question mark, although I don't know if this one's quite as controversial. So there's been a little bit of scrutiny over the position next to Carter Vickers. So with Austin Trusty, who seems to have largely cemented the place at the expense of Liam Scales, but his performances come under a wee bit of scrutiny this season at times. Questions over something, his time and his positioning. But then when he plays well, he really plays well. I mean, he's a standout performer. Any concerns about Trusty being the partner for Carter Vickers? Would you say maybe an opportunity for Liam Scales to come in? Because unfortunately, Liam Scales, when he's come in for the cameo appearances he's had recently, again, has been under a bit of scrutiny for those. So it's almost a case of, as we've always said, Carter Vickers and another. But I mean, Liam, I'll come to you first and then come to Paddy. Who would you see as the best partner for Carter Vickers at this moment in time?
I think that Trusty's the better player, but at the moment, I think that Scales might be in the better form. So, personally, I would go with Trusty if we stick with the logic of playing your strongest team. But, again, I think Scales would come in and do absolutely fine. I would be okay with that. But no, my choice would still be Trusty, because I think players have up and downs in form, but we've seen in Europe this season that he is a classy player. I mean, someone just mentioned it in the comments here, 2 great games against Bayern. You don't play 2 fantastic games against Bayern Munich if you're a numpty. That's just...
He was also excellent against Atalanta, wasn't he?
Yeah. So maybe a case of keeping his standard high for the domestic games, Paddy, because, you think the motivation and concentration levels are always going to be the highest when you're playing in the Champions League against these teams. That's where you need it, and that's a good sign for a player. But you've got to do it in the cold, wet, dreary afternoons against the Falkirks and against the Ross Counties, etc. You can't just save it for Europe.
I think it might be the fact that against the best teams in Europe, you're under pressure more often than you are against.
So you have to be constantly on it.
So you're having to be on it. But then I suppose it's like the old goalkeeper argument for Celtic, isn't it? You've got to be switched on all the time, so when that time comes for you to make that save or make that tackle, you're there and thereabouts. I just think maybe Trusty's finding it hard to kind of transition from having to be excellent in Champions League games to being excellent domestically, even though you're not tested as much domestically. So it might be that. But I agree with Liam. If either or started, it wouldn't really faze me. For Liam Scales, I mean, even when he was playing well, he was always under scrutiny. So I don't think that's anything new to him. I like big Scales, but obviously he's got his limitations. I think Trusty's the better player, like Liam says. But I wouldn't have any issues with any two of them starting.
Yeah, I was watching an interesting feature on Celtic TV about one of our standout players this season. I think it's Alistair Johnson playing at right back. He's taken his game to another level, I think, this season for me. I mean, he's an obvious starter, and again, that's not denigrating, the next choice player, Antonio Ralston, which is Paul John's favourite player, as we always talk about. But we talk about players who are maybe in the crosshairs for transfers by virtue of the way they played. Alistair Johnson, what he's doing internationally, what he's doing for Celtic. I mean, when I look at Alistair Johnson, I think future captain material at Celtic, but he's a player that we're going to have a hard time keeping, Paddy, the way he's playing, aren't we? I don't think there are many right backs out there at the moment that are hitting his level and would be quite as accessible as he would be.
No, I don't, and I don't think there's any need to worry about him leaving either. Because I think, like Maeda, Johnson's totally settled at Celtic. He's got a happy home life. He's never intimated any thoughts about leaving the club. He's just signed a new contract last summer, actually, which keeps him here till 2028, if I remember, 2027 maybe. I just don't think. I mean, I know that there was the mainstream ran a story about Inter Milan being linked, but that wasn't even the case. Inter Milan were not linked. The story came from a fanzine where they suggested a replacement for Dumfries, I think, who's a current right back now in Milan. And all the article said was, as an article in Inter Live, all it said was an interesting option could be Alistair Johnston and the Daily Record and whoever it was. And Scotland ran it as he's been linked to Inter Milan. Pile of nonsense, pile of rubbish. That's why we never touched it on 67 Hail, because it's just a load of rubbish. But anyway, I think the fact he's been spoken about in those kind of levels just shows you how well he's doing for us at the moment. I don't think we've got any problems or any worries about him leaving anytime soon, unless the club gets a stupid offer, like £56 million for Maeda.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's the risk you take. I mean, I always think you look at certain players and you think they're more valuable with us, irrespective of the transfer fee, because to replace them, I think this goes back to Kaiser's earlier point. What would you have to spend to replace a player like Alistair Johnson, like Daizen Maeda at the moment? You wouldn't get the equivalent player for what we could pay. So,
I was listening to Peter Grant a couple of days ago, and Peter Grant said he's the best right back we've had probably since Danny McGrain. That's how highly Peter Grant rates him.
That's some company to be in there.
I know that, and I thought that as I was like, wow, that is some.
All he needs to do is grow his beard now. That's it. Just AJ needs a beard now. There was before I come here, Liam, there was one of the features they did. I think they were asking him, what's his favourite Scottish or Glaswegian term, and his favourite one he said was "gitty." And it was there's nothing funnier than a Canadian saying it, and you're trying to do the Glaswegian accent.
Hopefully, if any bids come in, that's what Peter Lawwell will tell them today as well.
I was just thinking, there wouldn't be any of our fans telling them that anyway.
No.
So that was quite good. Liam, there was another wee piece of news, slightly off topic, but don't know how much truth is in here. But it was reported that Celtic kit sales and strip sales are actually outstripping most of the clubs in the English Premier League and in Europe at the moment. That's a hell of an endorsement about the wide range and the wide reach the club. I mean, as something of a kit aficionado, should our club be doing more to tap into that kind of reach at the moment? When we talk about, we are very well run as a business, but there's such an international presence about the club at the moment. You think, God, could we tap into that more and make more of it, rather than the heritage kits, these kind of things, but actually looking more at the international reach and just how wide a lens our support has.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right. Granted, I'm a big guy. All right, I mean, you can see it, but it is really frustrating that I'm a Celtic fan in Japan, and the only way I can get a Celtic top that will fit me is if I order it from the Celtic shop. pay an extra 20 quid or whatever for shipping, and then pay another extra like 15, 20 quid in tax once it gets imported here.
Yeah.
Adidas Japan store is selling the tops, but the biggest they go is like the equivalent to a Scottish medium, right? Which isn't going to get near me. So clearly they don't have that international setup like they should, and it's we are missing out on a lot, because I think that I kind of mentioned this today when we were having our group chat. The idea that Celtic is a story that a lot of people can buy into. We've got a history and a narrative. The whole thing about us being set up by immigrants to feed an immigrant population who are victims of discrimination, and in time we have grown up to dominate those people who are discriminating against us. It's the perfect story. And I think that's why for a lot of people, and not just people like, for example, in Japan who are maybe following Daizen or whatever, I think there's a lot of fans in places like England, like America, like Europe, who have an interest in football in general, and Celtic would be one of their second teams.
Yeah.
It's like, I and I'll just give you a shout out here. I want to thank one of our viewers, Claire, who sent me this Bayern Munich scarf last week. From the Bayern Munich club shop, because I mentioned on the pod that I have a bit of a affection for Bayern Munich, so thank you for that. But that's the thing, we do have like this idea of we are a lot of people's second team, and we need to take advantage of that. I mean,
Absolutely.
as much as I don't like to invoke them, Rangers did quite well with that when they got Gerrard, because there was a lot of people in Liverpool who kind of adopted Rangers because Gerrard was managing them. And they probably sold a few more shirts off the back of that, because they knew that and they played into it.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, Paddy, we're seeing celebrities coming out with Celtic tops, Rangers tops, all this. The profile of both clubs to an extent is growing, but you think with Celtic's resources, that is something we could tap into. And actually, it removes the reason I brought this up is if you can tap into these markets, you remove the need to generate as much funds from player sales, for example, and it allows us to become more self-sustainable. And you just think in today's day and age, with the business practices, with the technology we've got, the ability to mass produce, surely Celtic as a brand has got to be up there with some of the top sporting franchises and brands out there. And when you think of the US markets, albeit US is a bit of a scary place at the moment, but going as far and wide as Japan, other parts of Asia, etc., surely they must be looking at that.
I just want to get back to what Liam was saying about, obviously he had an affinity for Bayern Munich and he got that scarf sent. I've got an affinity with my mortgage, so if anybody wants to send me anything to contribute to my mortgage, then I'll send you my PayPal details.
Other mortgage refugees are available.
Yes, absolutely.
So, just if anybody gets in touch with Paul John at Acsom.net. No, but seriously, I think for Celtic, I mean, if you look at, I think the first thing you need to do is look at the pricing structure. A lot of the backlash for the new Irish Origins kit for the fans was the price, and I think if they looked at the pricing structure first, they would actually probably make more money. Because more people could afford to buy it. And when you look at the cost of living crisis when just now, asking for £90 for a t-shirt, I mean, geez, oh man, that is unbelievable. Nice one, that's good. First of many, I hope. So I think first and foremost they should be looking at that before expanding to other markets. Because let's face it, Mark Henry wrote an article 670 yesterday about how much money we've earned this season alone, and our turnover is likely going to outstrip a lot of Premier League clubs down in England this season because of merchandising, because of Champions League, because of player trading models and stuff like that as well. But I think the pricing structure of some of the stuff that the club brings out is alienating a lot of fans, and I think that's probably one of the most important things, because if you've got a 60,000 seater stadium and you only sell it half at £50, would you not rather sell the tickets at £25 and sell it the whole stadium? So I think that's maybe something the club could look at moving forward in regards to merchandising sales. That's my own personal opinion on that.
Yeah, no, look, I appreciate this topic is not for everyone. The reason sometimes we get messages from people saying, Acsom, and I'm sure other shows and podcasts get the same, but saying, have a voice for the fans. Can you get a message to the club? Can you tell us we're not happy about this, we're not happy about that? Well, this is kind of why we do this. We bring up the topics, and it's about maybe somehow the feedback and the general thought gets back to the club, and they say, oh, actually, hang on a minute, we're maybe not quite on the pulse of the fans. That's the hope. Doesn't guarantee it'll ever happen, but that's hope. Gents, that's us hit the hour. That went really quick for me. I don't know how it was for you guys. Hopefully everybody in the that was watching along enjoyed that. Appreciate everyone sticks with me when I'm subbing for Paul John. Over 1,200 strong. What I want to do, Paddy, is just first of all get your prediction for the quarter-final at the weekend against Hibs. How do you see it?
A couple of goals. I think Hibs will still score. I think 3-1 to Celtic. I think it'll be a good game. Having 7,000 Hibs fans will create a good atmosphere. I think it'll be a good game. Can I just give a shout out as well to James Kilburn? He's one who watches every single day.
I know, Jay. I've seen James in the comments many times.
That's my uncle, and he loves the show. He watches every day, and he's always sending comments in. So, how you doing, Jim?
Good man, Jim. We see. We'll definitely. We generally always bring up James's comments when we see him. So
I've seen that. I listen to the show every day. Yeah.
Good stuff. And Liam, same question to you, mate. For the weekend, how do you see it going?
I predicted 3-1 on Tuesday, and I'm going to stick with that. And while we're doing shout-outs, I just want to say thank you to the couple of Rangers fans who came into the comments today. I mean, it's a day off for somebody's sister, isn't it?
Well, I did notice we had at least one infiltrator, and he's gone. So, I'm sure that'll get back. Listen, thank you very much to both the guys and everyone for joining us today. As 1,300 strong. Paul John will be back at the weekend. Might very well be with him to cover the game. Either way, I hope everybody has a great weekend, enjoys the match, and we march on towards the treble. This has been a Celtic State of Mind. Hail, hail, folks.
Hail, hail.